Okay, we're going to talk about the highlights of non-experimental research. So today we're going to discuss alternative designs for research for use when we're not looking for causality. That's not the purpose of the research study, to find out what caused something. So you know how we're looking at, in other designs, how we're looking at an independent variable and if it causes an effect on the dependent variable. We're not looking at that in non-experimental research. So we're going to particularly focus on developmental research, survey, correlational, and replication designs. So non-experimental design. So like I said, we're not looking for cause and effect. We're just looking to describe something. So we're looking to describe clinical anomalies or discover associations between two variables or document some sort of developmental pattern that's happening. So design is non-experimental when you have no control group or multiple measures, and the purpose is something other than trying to determine if there's a cause-effect relationship. So some common methods, case studies and ethnographic designs. These are typically really thorough descriptions of individuals or groups. So a case study, if you're reading a case study, there's no experimental control. It's just a really in-depth description of how someone is performing. Ethnographic designs can be individual or group. Whenever I think of ethnographic designs, I always think of anthropologists or sociologists going out into the field and really giving detailed descriptions on people or groups. Historical designs, these are retrospective, where you are reviewing past records of things and describing what's happened. Correlational designs, these are typically, retrospective in the past, and it's exploring the relationship between two or more variables. Developmental designs, this is where you're measuring a behavior over a certain amount of time. And then we know surveys are just to describe people's feelings, attitudes, beliefs, their behaviors, and it's just a way to capture that kind of information. Okay, so we're looking at correlations. There's some correlational statistics that we use. So correlation designs investigate both the direction and the strength of a relationship between two variables. So if we're doing a parametric test, it's Pearson's R, and we see that it's a relationship between two variables, and then R squared tells us the percent of shared variance. A non-parametric statistic for looking at correlations is Spearman rank order coefficient. Okay, in longitudinal research, this is typically a family of designs, and they're about a year or longer in length. And some of the problems, if you're doing longitudinal research, is that participant attrition, you can have a lot of participants drop out when you're studying them for such a long period of time. And then also think about the amount of resources it takes to study groups of people or individuals even, just for a long period of time. So there's two different types. There's cross-sectional designs. This is where you observe several different groups of research participants over a set period of time. So let's say you have 50 children, and you have 10 in year 1, 10 in year 2, 10 in year 3, 10 in year 4, and 10 in year 5. And so you're looking, this is cross-sectional because you're looking at 50 kids, but you're looking at them 10 each over 5 years. A longitudinal study would be, let's say you have 20 children, and you start off with 20 children and you track the same 20 children over 5 years. Okay, so let's talk about surveys for a minute. So when we do a survey, you have to, the whole goal is to get a representative sample from the population that you're surveying. But a lot of times we fail to identify all the members of a population, and we choose a sample based on just convenience. And the sample is based on volunteers. So just think about your own knowledge of being sampled to conduct a survey. A lot of it is just convenience, and identifying all the people in the population is really difficult. So surveys are a lot of times given to people that research participants that are conveniently available. We can minimize error of sampling if we use stratified sampling and other methods. And when you think of stratified sampling, think about like during election season when they do surveys, they try and get a sample of surveys from both genders and from different socioeconomic status categories, and from people that are independents, Republicans, Democrats. So they're getting stratified. They're trying to get a group, research participants in each of those groups. Some surveys, they take on the form of questionnaires, but they typically take on the form of questionnaires, but response rates can be really poor, and sometimes it's not really reliable if you want really detailed information. The format is that they typically have filter questions, they have some structured responses and unstructured, but getting people to complete a survey is very difficult. You can try and give people rewards and minimize the cost of participating. So email surveys have helped a lot with that instead of the cost of sending out mailed surveys. But think about the problems with email surveys. Think how many times you've gotten an email survey and you don't think about even twice about filling it out or not filling it out. So there's lots of issues with types of surveys and how they're distributed and how people respond to them and how the questions are written. Surveys are actually very tricky because the questions have to be written appropriately to make sure that they're measuring what they actually say that they're measuring. So when conducting research, you're not always looking for cause-effect relationships. There's a number of non-experimental designs that are valid that do help fill in the knowledge gap. And then we use both, non-experimental and experimental designs to help us understand our field better. So these are just some highlights from non-experimental research. I would like you to read the chapter on this. It should be a quick read for you, but these are just a couple of highlights on non-experimental research.